An inquiry from 2013, that is now a long time ago, revealed just 6% of UK military uniforms were made in the UK. Madam Deputy Speaker, we see quite a lot of flag waving in politics at the moment, but isn't true patriotism about making sure our young people have a secure future with opportunities for skilled jobs? How else can the government assist? We can also look at business practices and how they affect small firms. It's possible for clothing manufacturers to survive if they do not have certainty about production, deliveries and payments. This can be about the lack of formal agreements with buyers or that any agreements simply were not honoured. This puts manufacturers' cash flow in difficulties. Materials need to be bought, wages need to be paid. There can be an unfair transfer of risk from brand to manufacturer. Small enterprises can be mistreated by their more powerful business customers. That's why I support a fashion watchdog to protect small garment manufacturers, and I would welcome the Minister's assessment of this concept. On a similar theme, we need to ensure that there is a level playing field for UK manufacturers on ethical working practices, sustainability, transparency and compliance. We know that the Competition and Markets Authority has published guidance for fashion businesses making green claims about their garments. We need to ensure that the online giants comply with all of the regulations and are not undercutting UK enterprises with opaque information about how they source their products. Finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, technology and education. I'm pleased to welcome Professor Susan Postlethwaite from Manchester Metropolitan University, who I believe may be with us today, and her report, Reshoring UK Garment Manufacturing with Automation, makes the case for agile, small-scale, reshored garment manufacturing systems and a newly trained, highly skilled workforce. The report focuses on technology and education, the potential for new robotic and automated systems in UK fashion manufacturing, and redesigning fashion education to embrace this technology. How can the government help industry rise to the challenge and create high-quality jobs across our communities? Most of all, let's kick off the discussion with the industry and with the government working together so we can focus on what is important, making the UK the global home of sustainable fashion. Of course.
Liam Conn.
The importance of sustainability and the environmental impact of offshored fashion extends into the whole life cycle of our clothes. One of the first meetings I had upon being elected was with Chris Carey's collections, a textile recycler in my constituency of Beckenham and Penge. And they told me how the wide-scale proliferation of cheap imported fast fashion products with low quality fabrics was leading to huge declines in their recycling rates and leading them to condemn more and more clothes to landfill. Does my honourable friend agree that when evaluating onshoring feasibility, we should consider the whole life cycle of our clothes?
From West.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. And my honourable friend makes an excellent point. There's so much going on in our constituencies, but with relatively little support from local or central government. And now that could be with a small amount of effort and in that sector of sustainable fashion, we could be helping the industry to really flourish. As I said, the sustainable fashion, home of sustainable fashion, delivering high-skilled jobs, creating a truly inclusive economy which works for everyone. So finally, for the Minister, can the government promote onshoring across the industry and promote the benefits of manufacturing in the UK? Can the government turbocharge public procurement of local suppliers and increase awareness right across the public sector? The procurement's no longer just about pound, shilling and pence, but about best value for communities. And what can the government do to provide support to small firms on capital expenditure for research, development and technology? Will he work with the industry to promote training and apprenticeships? And I know that he's a great supporter of that already, helping parents who want to return to the workforce as well as youngsters. Will he assess the merits of the fashion watchdog? And finally, UK manufacturers need a level playing field. Are the regulations and guidance about sourcing and transparency up to scratch? Or is it time for a review? Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Question is that this House has considered onshoring in the fashion and textiles industries, and I call Shaukat Adam.
see you in this place as well. And I'd really like to thank the Right Honourable Member for Hornsey and Freeman Barnett, not just for securing this important debate, but how committed she was to travel all the way to Leicester in my hometown to show how committed and seriously she takes this matter. And Chair, if I may, I would like to discuss my hometown city and focus this speech on that, because we are a city, Leicester is a city rooted in textile heritage, from Tudor hosiery knitters working in their homes to the industrial expansion of the 19th century. In fact, Leicester once proudly claimed that it clothed the world. And by 1936, it was recognized as the second richest city in Europe. And in its height had over 1,500 factories employing tens of thousands of people. And Minister, as a young boy, this is not just nostalgia. I grew up in the shadows of these factories, and I saw firsthand how they powered enterprise. They created family wealth from people who just came to this country and fostered a culture of community entrepreneurship and philanthropy as well. These businesses did not just produce garments, they also sponsored local events, supported charities, built places of worship, and invested in the city. Manufacturing was in fact woven into the social fabric of Leicester, shaping not just livelihoods, but also lives. Today, across the county, the garment sector still supports approximately 11,000 jobs. Every component needed to make a complete garment is still available within the city. Leicester offers true end-to-end production from design concept to finished product. They do this with speed, flexibility, and technical capability that many overseas supply chains simply cannot match. Yet garment manufacturing now accounts for just £375 million of the UK's textile sector's 25.6 billion industry. That's less than 2%. Meanwhile, tens of millions of our pounds in public procurement is leaving our shores, and we surely have to ask why. The economic case is simply really strong for onshoring. Let's just talk about the British Army clothing budget alone, which is nearly worth £80 million annually. In previous years, as already mentioned by the Right Honourable Member, figures are only available from 2013. Only a small fraction, 6%, was manufactured in Britain. That's 94% being manufactured abroad, with an overwhelmingly abroad. NHS uniforms is another framework, which is worth over £125 million over 5 years. But during COVID, the Department of Health and Social Care spent over £13 billion in PPE, with billions of it written off as unusable and millions more spent on storage. And we saw that during the pandemic, that UK factories could pivot rapidly to produce PPE and scrub up at scale. The capacity exists, the skills exist, but what is missing is a clear mandate. Other nations understand this very clearly. In fact, in the United States, military uniform must be made domestically for national security reasons. The UK, I believe, should adopt a similar principle. Military uniforms and NHS clothing should be manufactured in Britain wherever possible. I'm not promoting protectionism, but for me, this makes perfect economic and strategic sense. There's also an extremely strong environmental case for onshoring, because onshoring reduces naturally carbon miles and allows for tighter environmental oversight. Leicester's innovators such as Nanofic and Shibori dye houses, working alongside De Montfort universities, are pioneering wastewater treatment methods that demonstrates how environmental responsibility and industry can work hand in hand. And there's also a very powerful social case, Minister. Garment manufacturing provides flexible employment. This is particularly valuable for many, for all, but particularly for women, enabling many to rejoin the workforce after having children, combating isolation and providing financial independence. In fact, I recently met trainees at Fashion Enters Leicester's Hub alongside Jenny Holloway and saw firsthand the appetite for skilled, ethical production. There's community organisations who have joined me today, like Wesley Hall, and there's also the Sharma Women's Centre offers sewing classes that serves as a pathway to work for many disadvantaged women. Leicester does not lack a workforce readiness, it has it in abundance. Now, I appreciate that the industry in my city has faced negative headlines. We can't shy away from that. And I agree wholeheartedly that any form of exploitative behaviour must be addressed and rooted out. However, the tacit review, launched after these serious allegations, found cases, yes, of some non-compliance, yet it made it perfectly clear that portrayal of an industry dominated by widespread modern slavery was just simply overstated. Enforcement bodies found no evidence of prosecutable modern-day slavery offences. The vast majority of Leicester factories are hard-working, skilled and ethical, and they certainly deserve recognition for this and not stigma.
We have set aside £4.3 billion to support manufacturers over the next 5 years, and up to £2.8 billion of that is for research and development. And there is, I would argue that quite often the creative industries such as fashion are hesitant about seeking research and development money because they sort of think that there's nothing new under the skies, and therefore they wouldn't qualify as research and development. But you've only got to watch Kinky Boots to know research and development is just as essential in fashion as it is in any other sector as well. We have revamped our support for businesses to make it more effective, and that's the business growth service which we've developed. And I would urge any business to seek help and advice when they need it. We're very keen on enhancing the trade promotion work that we do. London Fashion Week is coming up, the spring version, which unfortunately at the moment is just for women. I would like us to get back to male and female in spring, though the economics of that don't necessarily add up at the moment. But we're certainly very supportive of London Fashion Week in the autumn. In particular, I think members may know, but of all the big fashion weeks around the world, the UK has the kind of goes for the kind of edgier part of the market. And I think that is precisely where we should be, which is why it's so important that we provide financial support for what we call New Gen, which has produced a whole suite of new designers over recent years, many of whom are now breaking into much bigger markets. And of course, we continue our support through the British Fashion Council. We also produced a small business strategy last year, which is really important, not only because many of these businesses suffer from late payments. One of the things we definitely need to work on far more effectively than we have in the past. Shortness of, and then a second element of that is lack of availability for cash, whether that's for significant investment or it's for export investment. And in both of those fields, we have set aside additional financial support to make sure that is available for small and medium-sized enterprises.
To thank the Minister with his usual flair to talk about the importance of frictionless trade with the EU and how he's straining at every sinew to achieve that. The importance of research and development cash from funding, thanking him for his approach to the MOD on uniforms. He'll get his officials to do some digging for me on that, or prison uniforms in general, where they're necessary. And of course, the late payment strategy is so important for small business, and cash availability for trade abroad for SMEs, another vital element of the trade strategy. We look forward very much to the Responsible Business Review, and hopefully we'll be at the launch whenever it is. We'll come and applaud. And also I wanted to thank Fashion Roundtable, Fashion Enter, and Baroness Lola Young for all that they do to promote the understanding and up-to-date information of all that's happening in the UK on sustainable fashion.
It's a really good one, and I'm going to chase this one down. I will undertake. She doesn't have to go and beat up all the metaphorically the ministers in the MOD. I will do that for her, and I'll get all the details. I mean, it would be good if more of our British services were dressed in British uniforms. I remember once being in Sarajevo and being introduced to the new Italian uniforms, which I think had been done by Dolce & Gabbana. Previously, they'd been Armani, but they thought they'd upgraded to Dolce & Gabbana. Or it may have been the other way around, I'm not sure. I might have to correct the record again. But she makes a point about the Procurement Act 2023. This does enable, of course, public bodies. It gives them greater ability to prioritise ethical and local sourcing. And you would think that would apply to the whole of government rather than just parts of government. So let's see if we can make that happen.